Everyone.
Sweet Intuition, 2013, project by Molly Morgan Weiss on Florida Mountain, Massachusetts. According to Eastern ideas, man was created out of sound. He is sound. If a human being is in tune with himself and his environment, then he or she is able to arrange his or her life freely and creatively. And that's an excerpt from the Peter Hess website at www.peter-hess-institute.com. And if you can hear me now, and you've already heard me this far, then perhaps you've already noticed my voice. Yes, that's it. From the time I was 3, I found myself repeating visits to tiny rooms sitting behind glass walls with large headphones strapped to my head. I'd have to wave my hand in the air every time I heard a sound through those headphones. In there is where I first discovered the meaning of doubt. Sometimes I think I would hear something, but it would be nothing. Sometimes I didn't hear anything, but would just notice the eyes of the folks on the other side, confirming there was certainly a sound I missed out on. Other times, a sound wasn't really the sound they wanted me to hear, it was in my own head. But most of the time, I just simply wasn't sure what those people on the other side of the glass window really expected of me, so I raised my hand for that. And on into glass booths I went until well into my angst teenage years. According to records, I'm half deaf. But now I want to talk to you about an extraordinary artist who probably never doubted himself. An artist whose 11-acre land was generously donated to me from one artistic spirit to the next. As I research more and more, embarking on this journey for art, searching for the sound of my own energy into the world, he's been a strong creative influence and ally. Chris Hale. This research has given me the opportunity to understand both my connection and reverence to the artist. Furthermore, seeing the absolute relevance that this great visionary and thinker still has in a world that we're still trying to navigate today. I will read excerpts from his eulogy, beautifully written by a dear lifetime friend of his, John Snow. Chris. An invocation. Chris, an invocation by John Snow. Who is Chris? I say is because Chris still is very much with us. That's one of the things artists get to do, and they give the world beautiful images that resonate deeply of who they are inside. Share in any other way are there for us every time we care to look at them. In that sense, Chris is one of the most generous spirits that ever walked our way. I bet all of us here have some piece of him on a wall, or a label of a wine bottle, or some hand-carved spoon, or a stone in a garden, or an invitation to a poetry reading, or a book for school children about swamp frogs and possum-like creatures spelled in mysterious ways. Chris Hale had his own spelling guidelines based on a particular set of Halian phonetics. There were also Halian economics that were manifested by beloved 14th Street, home of the Salon. The Salon at 210 East 14th Street, above Cuchufritos, 4 floors of Halion systems, at their most refined. There, on any given night, you can hear Will Patton screaming the lines by Harold Pinter or Bill Patton, or Scarlett Rivera composing riffs on her electric violin to play in the Rolling Thunder Review, or go upstairs and be in Egypt with Jenny, walk through the walls and be in the next building and see Wes's drawings, Roger's photographs, Eric's etchings. There were evident all manifestations of Chris's generosity and his unique aesthetic. His contempt for anything designed after 1930, the ancient underwood, used only on the rare occasions when Chris was feeling un-Gutenbergish and wouldn't set type. The cooking utensils in the fireplace, the lantern projector, and the dimmest of lights. A faint and token homage to Edison. Hail Lean Economics. Maybe you think it's tongue-in-cheek about the economics, but the real deal is, as far as the planet goes, as far as what one produces in relation to what one uses, in terms of giving and taking, in terms of respect for matter in any form, Chris was way ahead of most of us. He was on an evolutionary track that might actually allow a few remnants of life to survive the Homo sapien experience. Chris had a deep sense of justice, punctuated by his persistent humor, often grim. Once some kids broke into 14th Street and stole a lot of stuff. Chris didn't seem to care much, because there were mostly few material accessories that he had. But when their younger brothers followed up by robbing his good writers and printing inks, he got mad. He found out who they were, went to their projects on Avenue D to talk to their mothers. Chris didn't believe there was anyone on the planet that couldn't have a conversation with, or any place he couldn't go. He sailed a rickety sailboat through a hurricane. He mined abandoned buildings in New York City for furniture and anthropological evidence. Rode a battered motorcycle over the Alps. Went up the Hudson to St. Lawrence Seaway in a Boston whaler. Walked through South Bronx to find Mrs. Butler so he could get permission to fix up her house on Eastville Avenue. There, Chris did justice to the dead, taking care to honor the daguerreotypes of Pharaoh's past that hung on the walls. Every house that Chris lived in became in some way a house where the spirits were honored. Even in Regina Coeli prison in Rome, Chris left a piece of himself when he ground up rust scraped from his bed into an iron oxide pigment and painted the walls of his cell. That was an act of survival. When the authorities refused to allow him to shoot his insulin. And of course it worked, because said authorities immediately transferred him to the psychiatric wing, where saner folks recognized the truth of his claim. An African might tell you that honoring the spirit is always an act of survival. That was the African Chris. There was an Asian Chris, inscrutable. An Australian Chris, primal. There was a poker Chris, who never played a hand based on the cards he was holding, but always on the feeling he got from the table. He rarely won, but he made us all painfully conscious of our poker personas. Chris spent time in other nasty by the Sag Harbor cops. But he always wrestled with the dark side and made something out of it. He met Jenny at Bellevue, and he sued the police and won. And out of all of this came a river of art. It came out the way Goya's art came out, or Cellini's, a record of light and darkness. Sometimes effortless like rainfall, and sometimes every line worked to the bone, scraped and re-scraped. I remember how when we were studying at the Belle Arte in Rome, we used to steal away with a bag of clay at the Villa Medici and sit by the fountain modeling shapes. There was a great show of Alberto Giacometti's work inside the villa, and every hour or so we would drink it up, we'd go in, drink it up, and come back out and do some more clay stuff. I think how much like Giacometti, Chris's way of seeing was. The tenuous line, the whole of a unique posture, caught in one squiggle. His work could be bawdy and somber and mysterious. It broke all the rules. How you make it, how you offer it, and on what terms. When we made our outdoor work on 3rd Avenue and 7th Street, known as the Pit, it attracted hookers and pimps who liked to eat lunch there, Cooper Union students who theorized in more prosaic ways, witches, actors, firemen, and lost demonic souls like Sinbad, who chopped down trees with his machete and wrote his name on walls with red paint. Chris liked to talk to them all. People passed through his fiery furnace of Chris's imagination into his work. And if you knew his life, you saw the wondrous amel gowns of Jenny, Sylvia, and Linda, and Beth, and Susan Monka, folded into Madonnas and Queens. I strongly encourage you to look at Chris Hale's work, which can be found in the private estate of their home in Sag Harbor, or at haleart.com, spelled HAILEART.com. Sweet Intuition. It's my own homage to the spirits past. It's an 11-acre performance, sound, and video installation on Florida Mountain, Massachusetts, from July 1st to August 1st, 2013. Inspired by the effects of sound, a hearing impairment, and the power of intuition. The extraordinary thing about sight and sound are their speed and tremendous influence. This project aims to converge these two strong sensory perceptions into one experiential trail sprawling over the 11 acres, formerly owned by the artist Chris Hale. Hale lived on a bus, made his own well, shower, outhouse, cabin, brushed his teeth in the stream, lived off the grid. I'll be heading up there for a month, reuniting with this former artist's energy, creating a constellation out of the land, connecting with sight and sound using multimedia, fibers, sculpture, and performance. I will be playing his singing bowl at 6 a.m. every morning. Viewers can walk the periphery outlined in deep purple, listening live, following the intuitive path. Jon Snow's words resonate deeply. As far as what one produces in relation to what one uses, in terms of giving and taking, in terms of basic respect for matter in any form. Coming from New York City, we live in a consumer culture and produce a lot of energy. Sweet Intuition reminds us to pay attention to the spaces around us, our place in the larger whole. This collaboration of sound and space exhibits my own vibrations and connections to my surroundings, something that my hearing problem, in turn, made me very aware of at an early age. It's been a matter of survival and art, just like Hale's walls in the Regina Coeli prison. Because this is largely a sound piece, I felt it important to read this statement out loud to you, starting this series of songs, Sweet Intuition. You can tune in through my website at mollymweiss.com or through YouTube. Thank you very much, and have a great day.